We are back. You are chatting with John P. Today we are going to be answering some questions, doing a little bit of a Q&A, and I actually, if you watch Federico from Federico Talks Watches, you know that he does Q&As fairly frequently. I tend to not do them because I do message people back on my Instagram as well as some emails. Instagram, The Real John P. But what I've done is I've had some here that I haven't quite had the time to respond to yet with the holiday season. Things that are happening, unfortunately, have not responded to everyone. So I do have some questions here. So if you ask these questions, hopefully you are watching this video. And also on the wrist today, guys, I have a Vincent Calabrese Trans World. I'll put a picture here. I love this thing. There's a couple of watches that he has in this collection, probably close to 2 decades old now at this point. So borderline vintage or transitional. And I've been hunting around for these for a while. They rarely come up. And the beautiful thing about this is the texture on the dial is very reminiscent. It reminds me so much of what Grand Seiko does with some of their snowflake models on the dial and the hammer texture. Really cool. I really have not been able to capture the texture well enough in any of the pictures I've taken, but hopefully the picture here does the trick and you can see kind of what this guy was doing with some of his expert craftsmanship. Also, guys, this is probably going to be the last video I release before Christmas for myself. Merry Christmas for those of you that celebrate and all the other holidays as well. Hopefully everyone is, enjoying those. And I should be able to release another video coming up before New Year's, which is next week. The first question that I was asked is the Omega Seamaster Ceramic a good investment? Of course, guys, if you watch the channel, you watch other channels, you know that watch YouTubers, including myself, don't really like to consider watches as investments because even just to give you an example, if I was to tell you a watch is for sure going to go up and then it goes down, well, now I'm wrong. And the reality is it's not even about being right or wrong. It's just about, making a suggestion for an investment should actually have some evidence, tangible evidence that's trackable and have historical data to make it an investment and not just speculating. And for fun and games as a hobby, speculating can be fun. And, if you've really exhausted all other options for investments, then sure, why not have a little bit fun and try to mitigate the risks that come with having a watch collection if you do not plan on keeping the watch forever. But that being said, in terms of the Omega Seamaster Ceramic, keeping its value, I think they're keeping their value pretty well. If you do hunt around, you do find them pre-owned or you do find them gray market. Omega's kind of been going up market as a brand, and with that becomes more up market prices, including retail prices. So that being said, if you do walk into an Omega boutique and you do buy an Omega Seamaster ceramic bezel, then you are going to be taking a bit of a loss if you sell it on the gray market or on the secondhand market because you bought it at retail. But that being said, there's no reason that you can't get a pretty steep discount. And actually here at Del Rey Watch, we do have a new watch section where we pair up the buyer with the authorized dealer, a bit of a network of authorized dealers, and it's been doing pretty well, and people have been really happy, including with the Omegas. So I always recommend shop around on the Omegas because right now they don't hold the value as much as something like a Rolex sports model is going to, though things are changing, and I could easily see, maybe 5-10 years from now, something comparable to where we are with Rolex. But I did another video talking about Omega. You can check that out if you are interested. But in short, I do recommend the watch. Try to get a good deal on it. Next, will the SeaDweller two-tone go up in price? Not a lot of data on this one, guys. We collect a lot of data. We have systems that we've built here. We use Salesforce fully built out for you tech guys and salespeople out there that kind of resonate with that. And we do track a lot of data. That being said, this watch that recently came out, we don't have much information on. There's not a lot of these things floating around. We've had some people call in and, claim to have them, things like that. The data's not really there, so I don't know if the prices are going to go up. You can look at some of the other models, including the new root beers. The new root beers have kind of come down in price. They might be a little bit higher now for the holiday season. We haven't had any through the doors here at Del Rey in a while, but two-tone watches are generally not as desirable, and the SeaDweller is also not as desirable as something like a Submariner, probably because of the case thickness. Once again, I'm speculating, but that's kind of the feel that I get when someone gets into a sub instead of a SeaDweller. If they want the SeaDweller, they want something that's maybe a little bit thicker, and that's what comes with that increased depth rating. But what do you need precious metals for going to the depths of the sea anyway? It's always kind of funny to see the two-tone Submariners. I get it. You want to have something to splash around with on a boat or something like that, but then to take it one extra step. But no, my Submariner two-tone is just not rated at deep enough depths that I actually need to get the SeaDweller in two-tone so the fish can see my precious metal. I don't get it, but some people enjoy it. To each their own. Next, I'm trying to sell this Grand Seiko. Okay, and then he gave a model. How can I not lose money? With Grand Seiko, there are some watch models that are incredibly desirable, right? You have the Grand Seiko Heritage Seasons collection, where they have all the seasons and something different that represents, the cherry blossoms and the different seasons and the forests in Japan, and that's very cool. Really enjoy the watches, and those watches seem to hang around the retail price quite well. Sometimes a little bit higher, sometimes a little bit lower, but in the certainly one, I don't know if you want to say standard deviation, I guess if you want to get nerdy with it, but certainly in that 5-10% range of the retail price. But then when you start getting into some less desirable models, some of the models, maybe the hand wound or the manual wind version watches, some of the more quartz offerings with the 9F movement, some of the more approachable models, the desirability really does go down, and with that comes a bit of a loss in price. So if you buy at retail, have a bit of a tough time. Though that being said, the watches, once again, that are in those categories that are not the most desirable, you should be able to no problem get a very steep discount from a Grand Seiko authorized dealer, because they know as well that those are slow sellers. So if you're in the market, try out there. But if you did buy one of these at retail, I think your best bet is probably the watch forums, Watch You Seek, or the Rolex forums. The others seem to be a bit of a hassle and a nuisance and don't have great feedback. Some people really love Time Zone, but I think the times are outdated on that one. Or even try eBay, but with that comes a lot of inventory from Japan that's placed on eBay for the Grand Seiko models, and they do sell very low. So on the other side, if you're not trying to sell the Grand Seiko and you want one of these, the 9F or one of the other watches, you can try out eBay. And I think eBay's doing a little bit of a better job with their authentication service, but I'll let you check that out yourself. Certainly not a sponsored video. Next, should I buy a new Breitling Navitimer? No, I'm not sure. This person probably wanted an Navitimer. They like the rich history. It's iconic. A chronograph. I get it. I understand it. I think the Navitimer is quintessential aviation chronograph. Now, do I recommend buying one of these? If you like it and you plan on keeping it a long time, I do recommend it. Though once again, a bit of a recurring topic is something that always comes over and over and over again. So for those of you that feel like I'm beating a dead horse, I cannot reiterate enough that buy it if you love it, but don't worry about taking a hit or a loss if that's something you're concerned with. And if that is something you're concerned with, then maybe find a watch that you like a little bit more. That's always an option too. Buy actually what you love the most if you can find one. I know there's people out there that say, I want a Daytona. I'm sorry, it's going to be a little bit difficult. But maybe try to find something else if it's not something you plan on keeping, is what I always recommend. Or get a better deal once again. Where can I buy a Snoopy? So I'm assuming they're talking about the new Omega Speedmaster Snoopy with kind of the animation on the back of the watch. I love this watch, and I had an opportunity to buy one the day one. I didn't pull the trigger. I was just too busy, and I know some people are probably laughing like, "Oh, you could have, made so much money on that." I get it, guys, but it was just one of those things. Okay, it was released, it launched, I was offered it, and then very quickly, in the day here at Del Rey, we're busy, I changed my mind, and it's gone already. And the boutique had already moved it to obviously someone that saw it on wherever, Hodinkee, and gave them a call right away. So where can you find one? Unfortunately, secondhand market, even the secondhand market, it's a little bit difficult, or you're going to pay a very steep premium for this watch. Will it retain value long term? Not sure. One of the other Snoopies did come down, not the silver Snoopy, but the other Snoopy, the non-white dial Snoopy, did come down a little bit in price. The Alaska projects, not the original, but the other Alaska projects did come down a little bit. But then on the other side, you have things like the Tintin, which are still going extremely strong. So the Omega Speedmaster limited edition market's kind of an interesting beast. I don't know how many of these were going to be produced ultimately, but secondhand eBay Chrono 24 is going to be really your only bet to obtain this one, I believe. Next, what do you think about Zen Watches? Interestingly enough, I purchased for myself the Zen Green Dial chronograph, and they kind of explained it to me. The brand explains it in a way that the metallic finish and the green on the dial is supposed to be reminiscent of a vintage Jaguar, and that's awesome because I really love that brand and I love that British racing green that they implement in their vehicles since basically the inception of the Jaguar brand in their vehicles. I love that color green, and so I purchased this watch. I pre-ordered it. I got it in, and unfortunately, it just wasn't for me. I thought the case quality and construction was there. Overall, a great watch quality, but something about the thickness of the Zen 104 did not work well for me, right? Like I'm wearing, 36 millimeter watches, very slim wrist, for a lack of a better term. And so for me to wear a watch that has, that thick 7750 or a watch that has that kind of thick chronograph movement inside of it just doesn't work personally for me. Now, I know many of you are going to say, oh, the Zen 104 is not that thick of a watch. I get that. It's just personally for me. But I think if you have a 7-inch wrist plus, which I don't have, then you can wear the watch. But overall for the brand, I think they do deliver a lot of great value at their price points, and it's really difficult to beat the offerings that Zen is coming out with today. How do I get the best deal on a watch? I'll tell you exactly what I would do. First, you're looking for a specific watch model, go to Chrono24. Sort by price, find the best price. Then go to Watch Recon. If you're not familiar with Watch Recon, this is an aggregator, and I'm in no way affiliated with them. This has been around forever. I was 11 years ago, I think they probably launched. Maybe 10, 11 years ago, roughly, is when I started using them, or at least I was aware of them, and they've come such a long way. And the guy, the founder, I think he's still anonymous. For the longest time, he didn't want anyone to know who he was. He didn't want to sell the platform. He made a statement on some watch blog anonymously through his admin account. But nonetheless, it's an aggregator. You go there, it searches all the watch collecting forums. You type in your model, it finds it for you. It finds the prices. So I know so many watch dealers, and sometimes we even use it here when there's an interesting watch model that we don't have cataloged in our system that we've built. We go in there and we kind of, compare and see also where the current modern prices are. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, this is a great tool. And if you're looking to shop, you can kind of see where the market is. Now, keep in mind, there's not a lot of dealers that really play on the forums anymore. There's a lot of rules and a lot of limitations. And if you have a big inventory for watches, it's really difficult because they limit the number of watches you can post. You can post maybe 5 Rolex for that day. And it becomes tedious as well. There's not really an automated way to handle this, whereas eBay and Chrono and the other platforms, they kind of automate certain aspects of that for you to make your life, the upload process easier. But the forums, they just don't have that. So you are working with private sellers. Some of these sellers are reputable, and some maybe do not have a track record. So when you're looking at prices there, always keep in mind that you need to give yourself some variance because they do not have a history, and there's when you buy a watch or you buy anything, you need to buy the person that's selling it. And so it can be kind of difficult to gauge pricing, but it gives you a ballpark. And I think that's where you start. And then you work your way out from there. Go to your watch shops online, check out Delray Watch if you'd love to. I have to say, we do price ourselves competitively with these tools, so we try to be in market. So use these tools. They're really great options. And even when I'm looking for a watch, like myself, I bought this watch from another dealer, actually, from Switzerland on Chrono24. So I use the same tools as well. If there's a certain watch that I've been looking for that we just don't get in the doors, I'm using these tools, and we use these tools as well here at Delray Watch. Next, how do I start selling watches? Now, I've been getting this a whole ton, guys, and I know if you watch the channel, you know that, I did put together a little bit of an instructional for those that are looking to get into trading and dealing watches, and I've, done a couple of videos in the past as well. With selling watches, I'd say it's extremely competitive right now. It's such a popular thing, and that's why I probably think I'm getting a lot of questions, and I would say that, unless you have a lot of time, I might advise to not jump into it. But if you have the passion, anything can happen, and it could certainly work out. But it takes a lot of dedication, a lot of focus, and there's certain tips and tricks, and even just like using the software and the tool, the Watch Recon that I mentioned, things like that you pick up over time. But I would say it certainly requires the dedication. And while it may look extremely easy, right? You're just buying one watch for this and selling one watch for that. There's much more, much more to it. The way that payments are handled, all those different things come down, and there's a certain set way. And if you are interested, there's a link in the description below. You can check it out. And also, feel free, if anyone's trying to get into this, feel free to reach out to me on Instagram, The Real John P. I'll help out where I can. And what do we have? We have last customs, international customs. Specifically, this person asked me how they could avoid customs. Absolutely not advising that anyone do this. This is probably not legal in the least bit. When you buy a watch and you import it into your country, most countries, I think there's probably some countries that may have exceptions. There's a lot of countries out there. But when you buy a watch and you import it into your country, it goes through a customs process. It goes through the border and all the ways that they handle international mail and shipping, and they screen it for certain things, drugs, narcotics, all of that. Different countries handle it differently, and some countries have a very steep tax that they impose on the import, because even though the watch may have originated in Switzerland, it came from another country, and there's other businesses that are benefiting from that transaction, and the money's moving in that way, and there's anti-money laundering laws, and there's a whole slew of things and the reasons that they implement these things, each country, into their borders and their protections agencies. So when it comes to customs, I do not recommend that anyone fudges with the numbers, because you could actually get into a bunch of trouble, especially if you start getting into things with watch straps, right? So I did another video quite a while ago where I talk about CITES, CITES is the name. It's an international treaty where protected animals, including exotic straps for watches, are kind of governed between these countries, and there's different agreements they have. And when you start getting into alligators, the skins perhaps that come from Louisiana, located in the United States, and then now you're importing them into France, or let's say you're taking a French ostrich or something like that. I'm just giving an example. I don't know if that's a real thing, but you're importing the French ostrich strap into the United States, and while we may just say, oh, well, it's just the skin of an animal, the government looks at this a little bit differently, and there needs to be kind of a license, and there's a whole bunch of things. And so what I'm really getting at here is I do not recommend putting anything on the custom paperwork that is not truthful, because I have heard of situations where, now, the person didn't actually go to jail that I'm aware of, but they had to pay a very steep fine, and it was a couple of Rolex watches coming from I'm not sure where it came from, but it was another dealer, and I heard from the grapevine that they were bringing the watches in, and it got stuck in customs for a very long time, and they had to get a lawyer, and they had to fight the United States government or some wing of it in order to get these watches back. And so it ended up costing them about half in legal fees to get the watches back than what they were worth. And I think the big thing for them was that it took 6 or 7, maybe 8 months to get these watches back. So even setting aside the legal ramifications and problems that can stem from this, the time that your watches are sitting in a back closet somewhere in some office in wherever, Los Angeles, in the shipping and receiving department of customs, that's horrible, right? Who knows where those watches are going to end up? I don't recommend this. I could talk about this all day. But guys, any other questions that you have? I know I covered some here. There's probably some more that I'll respond to. Instagram, The Real John P. Hopefully everyone is gearing up for a great holiday weekend. Gonna finish up some things here before we wrap up and close for the holiday. Make sure to check out delraywatch.com. We will be closed on Christmas Eve and Christmas, but the day before, so tomorrow or today, depending on when this gets released, we will be here for you, and then back again the following holiday. Thanks, guys. Everyone, be well, and we'll see you next time. You've been chatting with John P. Ciao.